you see the eighth commandment there? Let's read it out loud together. Thou shalt not steal. Now, why did God give us this commandment? I think it's pretty simple. He gave us this commandment so that we would respect one another's property. I think he gave it to us so that we would understand the necessity of honesty and hard work and earning your own way. My guess is that none of you have ever robbed a bank. I don't know, maybe you have. None of you have ever pickpocketed. None of you have ever held up a convenience store. But this morning, and maybe you're thinking the pastor's lost his marbles and you're just cutting it too close here. But I want us to think about this morning some of the ways that good people, we would call them non-criminals, steal. One is theft in the workplace. Theft in the workplace. Sometimes employers take advantage of employees. Watch this. Leviticus 19:13. It says, "You shall not rob nor oppress anyone, and you shall pay your hired workers promptly. If something is due them, don't even keep it overnight." So don't hang on to those paychecks and try to get a little more interest off of your money. If they're due their salary, give it to them. Sometimes employees take advantage of their employers. How do they do that? Well, they can pad their expense account. They can come in late, leave early, take a 2-hour lunch. Another way people steal is through deception. Deception. Sometimes businesses deceive customers. That happens all the time. I got a deceptive piece of mail at the church just this past week saying that we were going to jail if we didn't do this about some posters or something. You know, and it was just absolutely deceptive the way they approached it. Another way, otherwise good people steal, is by cheating the government. I read just this past week that the Social Security pays out billions of dollars to American citizens who make bogus disability claims. Romans 13. This is a great passage. Romans in 13, we're instructed on how we're to live as responsible citizens. Look at it. Do you want to be on good terms with the government? Be a responsible citizen and you'll get along just fine, the government working to your advantage. But if you're breaking the rules right and left, watch out. The police aren't there just to be admired in their uniforms. God has an interest in keeping order, and He uses them to do it. We ought to be praying for our law enforcement officials right now. You got a nice state trooper on the front row. Watch your speed in Lincoln County. That's why you must live responsibly. Not just to avoid punishment, but also it's because it's the right way to live. That's also why you pay taxes, so that an orderly way of life can be maintained. Fulfill your obligations as a citizen. Pay your taxes, pay your bills, respect your leaders. Another way that people steal, people we normally wouldn't consider thieves, is by defaulting on loans. Psalm 37:21 says, "The wicked borrow and do not repay." Now I understand sometimes you can't pay a loan back because you've unexpectedly lost a job or health issues come up and you get behind because of doctor bills and hospital bills. We're talking here about people who borrow money and have no intention of paying it back. For the last one, fasten your seatbelt. Another way good people steal is by robbing God. Robbing God. Look at what God says in Malachi 3:8. Will a man rob God? Surely not. And God says, yet you've robbed me. What do you mean? When did we ever rob you, Lord? You have robbed me, God says. of the tithes and offerings due me. So when we don't pay our tithes, we are in essence robbing, we're stealing from God. Now, let's get down to business. What's the cure for stealing? Is there healing for stealing? Yes, there is. Here's what you have to do if you've stolen something that doesn't belong to you. You got to repent. You got to repent of it. Ask God to forgive you. Quit trying to rationalize it and justify it. Just own up to it and say, yeah, that was wrong. But after you repent, there's something else that's very important if you've broken this 8th commandment, and that is restitution. Make it right. Do you remember in the Gospels, do you remember the story of Zacchaeus? Okay, how about the song? Do you remember the song about wee little man? Zacchaeus was a dishonest tax collector, and he had just taken advantage of people. But he met Jesus. And when he met Jesus, he realized the wrongs that he had done. He repented of those wrongs. And then he is quoted in Luke's Gospel, chapter 19, verse 8. He says, "Here and now I give half of my possessions to the poor, and if I've cheated anybody out of anything, I will pay back 4 times the amount." That's restitution.